Welcome to the Epcotien Adventure,
a podcast where we talk about all things Disney, but we're Epcot-centered.
including tips and tricks, festivals and favorites, and the very latest in our rankings and reviews.
But we're still old enough to remember when Crush's coaster didn't make us want to see a chiropractor.
Yeah, ouch. This is episode 88, our trip to Disneyland Paris.
Or, seriously, why does Paris get all the best stuff?
So now, please remain seated, keeping your hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the podcast as we embark on our Epcotien Adventure. Howdy, folks, and welcome to episode 88 of the Epcotien Adventure. I'm Rod.
And I'm Sue.
And we're back from Paris.
Yay!
It was so much fun. Andy, our friend, got to go with us for his very first time. We'll actually have an interview with him sometime here in the near future to get his take on things. But this is Sue and I talking about what actually happened when we went to Disneyland Paris this time.
Yes, and, seriously, why do they get all the best stuff?
I know, the best mansion.
They have the best pirates.
The best thunder.
They have the best small world. Who, that's not even a competition.
And the castle is
oh my gosh,
beautiful.
I
gosh.
think it's my favorite castle.
It's my favorite castle.
Now, we haven't seen Shanghai or Hong Kong. We'll have to ask Andy what his favorite castle is, because he's seen them all now.
True, that's right. Yeah, Andy, congratulations, has now been to all of the worldwide Disney parks.
Yes, he's completed the circle. That is so cool.
That was on our bucket list episode, wasn't it?
It was.
Someday we'll get there, but this is my third time to Disneyland Paris. And Sue, this was your fourth time?
This was my fourth time.
And Andy's first time.
Yeah, so we had a good time.
We really did. I think as a group, it really, to me, is better as a group to go to Disneyland Paris. If you're a single traveler, like a Disney adult that's a seasoned traveler, and want to go on your own, it's fun. But to me, this park specifically is fun with other people. Because seeing their reactions for the first time. And I've been to Disney World by myself, been to Disneyland by myself, of course, over the years. I don't think I would go to Disneyland Paris on my own.
It is really fun to share those experiences, for sure. And to just, discuss the differences as you go along. And, I don't know, we really enjoyed it. But I do want to, this isn't even in our notes, so I'm going to ad-lib right off the cuff here. But I think in our previous episode, we said that 4 days is what we recommended. Having done it now, not just with us as people who have been there before, but taking Andy as a first-timer, I think still you could do it very easily in 3. And if you were pressed for time, you could probably do it right now in 2 days.
Yeah, because right now the studios is kind of a mess.
It's a big mess.
I'm not going to pull any punches here, but Walt Disney Studios Paris is becoming Adventure World, and it's really not even a half-day park. It's a really walk-in, ride Crush, ride Tower of Terror.
Have lunch at Remy's and leave.
There you go. So, and if you get the Premier Pass, the individual passes we talked about in episode 86, planning a trip to Disneyland Paris, then you don't even have to wait in those lines. So, yeah. The nice part about the packages, though, and we talked about this in episode 86, is that when you go as an American, you're purchasing those packages together really with the passports and the hotel stay in one package. And those are always a 2-park pass.
Yes.
You don't have to add the park hopper. It's automatically part of the package when you book through a U.S. website or the U.S. website for Disneyland Paris.
Which is such a great thing because you really do want to see both parks. But like we were just saying, you don't need to spend an entire day, even half a day, at studios right now.
But episode 86 was about planning a trip to Disneyland Paris. So let's talk about the things that we found that may have changed a little bit since episode 86, or since the last time we've been to Disneyland Paris.
Yeah, there were a few things that caught us a little by surprise, things that had changed since the last time we were there, and also some things that, as we went along, we were like, oh, you know what, we didn't talk about this, maybe we should.
Yeah, the biggest things really came out of the pandemic. Oddly enough, things like the tourist tax that we mentioned that had to be paid in cash all over Europe. Sue ran into this with a trip with our folks way back when in the UK. We run into it going to France and to Ireland and before, so we just were ready. We had cash ready. We had euros ready to pay this. It's now part of the bill. Everywhere we went, every hotel we stayed at across France and in Switzerland, they didn't collect it in cash anymore. So that's something I think that came out of the pandemic, where everything's gone touchless.
Yes.
Credit cards, the same thing. Everything has been streamlined now. We didn't need a PIN anywhere unless we used a debit card.
And a big bonus, I was able to use Apple Pay everywhere. Everywhere. Tiny little tourist shops in Switzerland, we got to use them, as well as all of the gift shops and restaurants in Disneyland Paris.
Yeah, even the ones that were not Disney owned.
So it's basically, it's like fake money. You don't even need money.
It's like using your Magic Band at Walt Disney World now,
yeah.
Which is a lot more dangerous when you're talking about conversion rates between US dollar, Canadian dollar to the euro. Yeah, it's not very favorable right now. Just note that it's going to cost you a lot more than what the sign says.
but it hurts a lot less when you're just clicking your little phone on there.
Yeah, tipping, one thing, though, is still in cash. So if you're going to be doing tipping as a North American, you want to be a good person and hand them a tip, you cannot do it on the credit card. None of the credit card machines we saw allowed for you to add a tip, which is a complete 180-degree difference from the U.S., where even the drive-thrus ask you for a tip now.
Yeah.
Weird. But they were very happy to take euros. We found even in Switzerland, they would take euros where they use the Swiss francs. So,
yeah, that was a nice surprise, actually.
Yeah, so I still would highly recommend getting euros ahead of time or at the airport from an ATM, a reputable ATM. Make sure it looks like it's a bank ATM and not a privately run one, because the conversion rate is going to be a lot worse at the ones that are non-bank owned ATM machines. Automatic teller machine. Yeah, that's the one.
Where you enter your personal identification number.
That's right, the PIN number. Yeah. A few other things. Just getting into France now has been streamlined since the pandemic. The reason we're talking about it this way is because our last trip was in 2021. The pandemic is still not in full force, but was still there. They had to tickle our brains, with the little Q-tip before we came back to the U.S. on that last trip. But we've noticed that going into customs now in the EU countries is much more streamlined. They were using facial recognition against your passport. I'm assuming using AI now. And you walk through and they stamp it and you walk out. It was literally no questions asked.
It was so easy.
Yeah, it was very easy and very futuristic compared to what it's been.
It did feel that way. And it felt like, what else do you know about me? It was very weird.
One of the things I forgot about, and we were presented with immediately when we got to the Moxie Hotel. It's a Marriott hotel there at Charles de Gaulle Airport.
Not our favorite.
Not our favorite. It was, I think as a brand, it's going to be okay.
The vibes in the lobby were super fun. If you're a college student, this is your jam.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the true hotel chain that is part of Hilton now. Very much similar to that. It's a Marriott-owned property, though, so it's nice. The quality standards are high. The elevators are tiny. I keep forgetting this. They're worse than cruise ship elevators. They're narrow and
much worse.
Might get 2 people in them.
With luggage.
And this is even at the Disney-owned hotels. When we got to Sequoia Lodge, which is where we stayed, we'll talk a lot more about that momentarily, elevators are tiny. Just
there were.
Be careful.
Especially on that first day and the last day when you have all your luggage with you. There's no such thing as sharing an elevator with another family, because you get it. But the bonus is that there usually are multiple elevators. Like even at the Moxie, which was a small like boutique hotel sort of feel, they had like 4 elevators. So even though they're tiny, there's a bunch of them. So it probably evens out, but just no, if you're claustrophobic, you might want to take the stairs.
Hey, we talked about a car service that we used from Charles de Gaulle to Disney. Highly, highly, highly recommend doing this if you have more than 2 people, or even with 2, actually. We did that on our last trip.
We did.
Not as cost effective with 2, but with 3, we found it was going to be the same price as taking the Magic Shuttle, which is the Magic Express, or Mir's version there in Paris to get to the parks. It was the same price for a private van. And so there are a bunch of them. You can find them on Viator.com. You can find them just by Googling private car service Paris. Again, like with New York or LA or any other major metro, do some research, check the reviews. Yeah. We actually did one that was a little smaller service, and the owner of the company took us, and it was fantastic.
It was great. Such good service, such nice people, and a very, very comfortable way to travel. especially on this is like your introduction to being there.
Mm-hmm.
Like getting on a bus is fine if that's what you want to do, but if it's the same cost to have a private car come pick you up, yeah, do that.
And we'll go ahead and put a link for that service that we used in Facebook and Twitter. So if you're interested in using that
we
service.
don't Twitter.
We don't tweet. No. Oh, sorry. The other googly one. What is it?
Instagram?
Instagram.
Hey, there we go.
I'm old. What?
And Twitter doesn't even exist anymore. It's called
that's
X
true. It's
now.
X now. Anyway, okay. So Instagram and Facebook, we'll put a link to the car service we used. We do recommend them. They were very good. And we even talked to the owner, and well, there you go. Anyway.
Yeah, it was great. Another thing that we noticed was we had mentioned that it's not a surprise to see armed guards, to see a multitude of armed guards. That's not unusual in the EU, in airports and general
in the train
public
stations
spaces.
too,
Yeah, train stations. We didn't see as much of that this time. I would imagine that this just varies depending on what's going on in the world and the state of things. They were still present, but it didn't feel as like in your face.
Yeah, I agree. It was very evident that they were there. But the last couple trips we've taken to any of the EU countries or just European countries, you see armed, like heavily armed security all over the place. And I'm sure they were there. They just didn't stand out as prominent as they used to.
Agreed. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about our trip. We had a fantastic flight on Delta. Thank you, Delta. You were fantastic this time. We've talked about other airlines that we've done.
Yes. And I don't know. I think you did mention in our planning episode that we upgraded to the Comfort Plus. That was 100% worth it.
Yeah, for the extra $200 round trip each, trust me, having the extra space and the free beverages, including alcoholic beverages, was very nice.
That was really nice. And our seats going there actually ended up being bulkhead seats. So there was like nobody in front of us, which we didn't realize when we booked them. But coming back, they were not. And I was a little concerned because on those long flights, people like to lean their seats back and you end up with someone's head in your lap. That was not the case. The person in front of me did lean their seat back and I didn't even notice. I could still stretch my legs out. Like, it was really nice to have that extra space.
Yeah, for international flights or for long-haul U.S. flights even, I recommend doing this. If it's going to be something you're doing as part of your vacation planning anyway, just budget it into the flight.
Yes.
It's so much better. And like we said, look for those seats that are 2 across instead of the 3 across if you're just a pair of people going, like Sue and I. That way you don't have to have somebody sitting in the center seat.
Right.
Which is usually always me, because I'm the older brother and I'm being the good older brother. So,
and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, okay, let's talk about our trip in general. Let's talk about Disneyland Paris.
Yay.
And how much better of a park it is than the Magic Kingdom and Disneyland and Tokyo Disneyland. And oh my gosh, why is it such a great park?
I think of all the like Castle Gate parks, like the actual Disneyland Magic Kingdom, like where the castle is, I think it's the best one. Am I wrong?
No, it really is. I mean, let's talk about the castle, because we gushed about it during the previous episodes. It really is just the most magical looking castle, from the trees that are in different shapes on the hillside with the grass going up to it, to the dragon in the basement,
and the moats and the fountains and just the whole setting. It's not just the castle sitting on Main Street.
It's really the whole hub
yes.
up there at the top of Main Street. It's just gorgeous.
It's so pretty. They really, really did it right. And there's a whole art gallery, like the one at Disneyland has the walkthrough where you walk through the story, and Disneyland Paris does something similar on the second floor, but it's done in stained glass. So it tells you the story in French. So you have to kind of use your imagination a little bit. You can read the story, but the stained glass is just absolutely gorgeous. You get to go outside the castle, so you're out on the little battlements. Yeah,
like a balcony almost that you walk out and look over Fantasyland.
It's so neat.
It's an amazing experience. And being able to walk into the dungeon where the dragon is, and then walk out a different way, like up into the castle from there.
Yes.
And there's a shop that looks like the queue for Snow White, where it's got the mine car and the different...
And you enter the shop like over a little bridge. Like,
yeah, it's amazing.
It's so neat. It's the whole thing is just so well done. So yeah, I think they have the best castle overall. They also got, like we said at the beginning, they got the best pirates. They got the best Big Thunder. I mean, maybe we should talk a little bit about why I don't know.
Well, I think because it was built in 92 and it was kind of Eisner's pet project, they threw a lot more money at the attraction.
Yes.
But they also did it in a way that they took the existing, what they knew of Pirates and Thunder and Haunted Mansion and Small World, and said, let's just plus these a little bit.
Yep.
But not only that, each of them tells the story differently than all of the other parks. Their Pirates is unique among the traditional Pirates, and I say it that way because of Shanghai, of course.
Right.
Completely different attraction. But the Pirates at Disneyland, Magic Kingdom, and Tokyo tell the story in the more traditional, go through the cave, go through the battle scene, and then end with the burning town. In Paris, you go down the drops in a whole different order. Meaning, you leave the station and you go up the lift first, which is the very ending piece of Disneyland.
Right.
Then you go through the scene with the dog with the key and the people or the pirates in like a flooded jail scene. Then you drop into the battle scene. Then you come around through the town, and when you get to the burning city, you go down drop 2 into the caverns. And it's almost like that's your punishment for knowing, you've seen the cursed treasure, you know where it be hid. Dead men tell no tales. It tells the story so completely different, but in the right order.
It also gets a lot of the details just so well done. You get to see the pirates invading the town. There's a pirate that's crawling over the wall to get to you. There's everywhere you look, there's a corridor that goes seemingly on forever up a stairwell that there's nothing happening. There's just stuff on fire. But it's part of the story. It's part of the scenery. We've mentioned these before, but the little kitties on the crates that are
in the water,
in peril. Like, just the details everywhere you look. And I love that you enter through the Blue Bayou type setting.
Through Captain Jack's, yes.
Through Captain Jack's.
Like Disneyland. They got that right.
And
Magic
you
Kingdom
immediately enter into a broken pirate ship. You immediately you have an entrance into the story, which I just love.
And I'm going to say this. The lighting at Disneyland Paris, whether it be in the attractions or just outside on the rockwork and in the hub, that park at night is spectacular.
Yes.
It's everything that Disneyland, in my opinion, used to be. Before lights started burning out, they didn't get replaced as often and things of that nature, or refocused at least. And Magic Kingdom, to me, has never been.
Right.
It's a pretty park. I'm not dissing Magic Kingdom. We love that park.
We do.
But when you see the lighting on everything at Disneyland Paris compared to Magic Kingdom, it's night and day. See, that's lighting.
That's good.
That was ba-dum-bum.
We should let Andy talk more about the lighting too when we talk, because that's
idea.
Really his that is his arena.
Focus.
That was
that's
good.
Really bad. Okay.
But on that same line, let's talk about the lighting because, okay, granted, we are all old. We will
Speak
grant
for
you
yourself.
That. No, you're old.
I am old. What? I didn't hear that. What?
Mumble, mumble, mumble. You're a wonderful conversational companion.
You can talk, all you do is moan.
No good. Can't hear you.
Yeah, exactly. But even without the old factor, there are parts of the park, parts of the pirate queue in particular,
inside the queue,
where you are just entering into darkness. They do not put safety lights. There's no OSHA certification happening. You go up a little ramp and you're in the dark because that is telling the story that they want to tell. It's part of the queue, folks. Like, this is not optional. You're just in the dark. It's bizarre when it happens because there are a couple signs. We actually took a picture of one because we're like, yeah, no kidding, it's dark. But it's just crazy to me that is normal there. So yeah, maybe have your little flashlight ready on your phone, which is super annoying. So actually don't do that. But just know that there are areas that are dark. And we actually found this we'll talk about the fireworks and such in a little bit.
Just a little bit. We're going to rant.
Yeah, we are. But trying to get to the fireworks, we noticed that a lot of the theming on the pathways is, especially Adventureland, Frontierland, there's rocks strewn about as part of the theming on the edges of the pathway. They line the pathway. But the fence line is beyond that. So you have darkness, you have a ton of people, and then the edges of all the pathways are rocks.
Yeah, they used all of the lighting budget, I think, on the Skull Rock.
Yeah, right.
And on the outside of the attractions, because that part's gorgeous. But yeah, the pathways are a little dangerous.
Extremely. Yeah. I don't know how people aren't injured daily. It's crazy.
Talk a little bit more about the attractions that we were just mentioning. So
Yes.
Thunder Mountain, of course, is one of the highlight attractions for just about anybody going to a Disney park. Paris has the best. It's out on what would be Tom Sawyer Island, or if you're familiar with Hong Kong, Tarzan Island, it's in the middle of the river. And because of that, you get to drive under the river at the very beginning and especially at the end. And the fastest point of the entire ride is the very last piece of the attraction. Great way to tell the story. I love it. Their thunder is amazing.
And again, that's telling the story because you are escaping the exploding dynamite.
Right, exactly.
The earthquake is causing. So you're running away, and it really feels like you are escaping by the skin of your teeth, which I hate that expression. Why did I just say that? But it really does tell the story, and it makes for a thrilling ride. It's so fun.
And if you remember our last episode, episode 87, the Halloween episode, the episode made specifically for Halloween, you will have taken note that the Haunted Mansion, Phantom Manor, is linked to Thunder Mountain story-wise in the Thunder Mesa area.
Yes, and also so is the Lucky Nugget Saloon, which I did not include in the story, and I should have. But yeah, that whole area. Instead of Frontierland, they really should have just called it Thunder Mesa. I think that would have been so cool.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, it would have been its own distinct. I wish they had done that, but hey, at least it's not Cars Land.
No, that's coming. Yikes. Their Small World just went through a huge rehab, so everything is just gorgeous there. But it's got a covered queue and not a covered queue. Yeah, I take that back.
It does.
Part of the queue is covered. But the entrance and exit to the show building are covered, which, I mean, it's like Disneyland. Oh, please, do this.
And you said show building, but it is the big, grand Mary Blair style like Disneyland has. Not quite on Disneyland's level, but really close.
And it has the train going behind it, just like Disneyland. So that part of it has the nostalgia factor for the Disneyland park, the original one with Walt, but they've plussed it.
Agreed.
Lots of brass, lots of just beautiful colors, and at night, again, it's just gorgeously lit.
Yes. And the interior, I actually had this that we were going to talk about this later, but we're on a roll now, so we're just going for it. But the interior has had a recent refurb, and it is absolutely gorgeous. Small World became one of our highlights.
Yeah,
I didn't think
enough.
I would ever say that. We actually wrote it like 3 or 4 times. It is absolutely gorgeous. And there are cultures represented that none of the other Small's World,
yeah.
Small Worlds have.
Like the USA.
The USA has a big portion at the end.
Hollywood and the Old West.
Western town and the football players. It's so neat. But they also have Cambodia is represented. Israel is represented. They have all these smaller, as opposed to big continental representation. They get really granular in the countries, and it's really neat. It's just so neat. And P.S. their hippo is not drunk.
Yeah, weird. I don't know. Disneyland's and Magic Kingdom's hippos have always been drunk.
Yeah, they have the little weird blinky eyes.
Yeah,
but it was just really, really neat. And theirs does not have the characters like Disneyland's has, which I actually enjoy the characters in there. But because they get so granular, so micro with those cultures, I can see why they didn't try to go that route. But it's absolutely gorgeous.
Okay, I have to be the first one to say we gushed about Crush because we have a crush on Crush as far as an attraction goes. And I said, hey, Epcot, bring this in. Okay, it hurt.
It hurt bad.
I guess it's because I'm really getting older now. but it hurt like Space Mountain and Matterhorn hurt this time. To be honest, it really was just the first lift. It was getting on that first lift had a big jerk to it that I'd forgotten about.
Yeah, I don't think it was there before.
Yeah.
I think we would have noticed because I'm still hurting a little bit.
It needs a timing chain, or what would be called a booster chain on most coasters ahead of it, so that you're timed appropriately so that it doesn't have that kind of clunk and pull as you get on a lot of older coasters. And I'm sure that's something a manufacturer could probably fix. So if Epcot, if you're going to put this in, do that.
Fix that.
Then fix that part. Otherwise, it's still a great coaster, but also the longest and slowest queue in the entire park. We did the Premier Pass for it. It was €17 and worth every whatever a euro penny is. I don't know. A Pfennig? I don't know. Or that's German. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think that's it.
Yeah, anyway, it was still a great attraction. I faced backwards. And that was even worse on the lift because that lap bar just shooting into your stomach. Oh, so much fun, right?
Well, I was in the forward-facing part,
and
it was still because it like whiplashed your neck back.
Oh, right.
It was not pleasant. So they really need to address that.
So I'll just say it this way. Andy, we're sorry. Because we were, both of us going, hey, you're going to love this ride. He came off going, I did not love that ride.
He didn't love it. He didn't love the spinning. You know, you can't please everyone. So there you go. But I still love the ride. They just really need to fix that entrance because that was painful. I guess we should explain a tiny bit what we were just talking about. And you're in the turtle shell, you're in Crush's shell, and you sit 2 facing forward, 2 facing backward, but you spin as the ride goes. So it's really just a matter of how you're starting the ride is what we were talking about. You don't do the whole thing backwards.
Very good point. Yeah, that if you didn't have any context there, thank you.
Yeah, so just to clarify.
One thing we did notice too with the queues, and this is just a European thing, I think, mostly because we didn't notice this in Tokyo Disney, but personal space is not a huge necessity to people over there.
Yeah.
We found this as soon as we got to the airport and got put on a bus to be transported over to where customs was. And they just kept, I was standing with my butt against the door and they're still pushing people in. And poor Sue, she kind of has a little bit of a claustrophobia issue.
I do.
We've said that a few times on here, but she got boxed in with about 5 people and
I just stared at my shoes and closed my eyes and did the find a happy place.
Not a great way to start the vacation. But then also in the queues, there was just the normality of people stepping on the back of your feet and pushing into the back of you and not even thinking anything about it. It's
and
just
elbows out all the time. Like literally just getting elbowed in the shoulder, in the face, in the arm, whatever, and just carrying on like that's normal.
And people there smoke still quite a bit. We found people smoking outside the hotels, in the common areas at the parks. And there are signs in French, English, German, 15 other languages saying no smoking. But they have smoking areas set up, much like Disneyland and Magic Kingdom and the other parks did for a short time. But their smoking areas are like every 30 feet, like
and not
one of the
enforced.
trash cans, and not enforced at all. People were vaping in line. It's just part of the culture.
Yeah.
So just note that if you go and you have a sensitivity to smoke, you actually might want to rethink your trip because Europe is still full of smokers.
And this might be a situation if you're someone who is sensitive to that, you might consider wearing a mask and having
Great
something
idea.
to just filter a little bit of that out of your life because it really is prominent everywhere. We also noticed there was a little bit of difference in cast members in general, but we had a lot of great experience with cast members, still very, very kind, very helpful. But we did notice that there's just a different pace in Europe, and there was no sense of urgency ever. You could have a line out the door. Yeah.
Loading.
Yes.
Anything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Say that some more because I had forgotten about that.
Yeah,
aspect.
even just dispatching. Now, on attractions like Thunder, where they're going to have a zone pause or something, if they don't dispatch quickly, then they were okay. It was just normal. But or a load and go like Haunted Mansion, where it's just pointing people to a vehicle. But like on the dark rides, we were backed up into the attraction every time we rode one of the dark rides into the, well beyond the unload area just because they just didn't care about getting vehicles moving fast.
I wouldn't say they don't care about things, but it's not a priority there.
Right, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
I don't think it's not a knock on the cast members. It's just, again, it's part of I think it's a slower paced culture in some ways.
Absolutely.
Because even like meal times, we're used to going in and having quick service or buffet. There, we sat down at Remy's and we sat down at Jack's and at Walt's, and each of those meals were over 2 hours.
Oh, yeah.
And it didn't seem like it. It's just that was the pace at which everything came. And
which is delightful when you have the time for it.
It was nice.
It's really nice
to
take that break. But when you're sitting on the ride and you're ready to go and you're waiting for 2, 3, 4 minutes for something that you shouldn't really be waiting for, it got a little frustrating to our American brains going, why are we still here? And another thing that we noticed, and maybe this is cultural, maybe it's because there are so many people speaking so many languages, I'm not sure, but it seemed like the theme song for Disneyland Paris was something like, please sit down in the boat.
Oh my gosh. At Storybook, yes. The Storybook there, if you're used to Disneyland has a cast member in the boat with you and is telling you the story. Storybook at Disneyland Paris is what you would call a cable boat ride, where the boats are attached to an underground or an underwater cable, and they just go along at a slow pace.
And you're seated like a pirate boat, so you're in rows as opposed to around the outside of the boat like you are at Disneyland,
and
which
no
is
lap
important.
Bar. Yeah, and no lap bar.
Yes.
So, yeah, poor cast member. Had to repeat it in how many languages? I don't even know.
3 or 4.
But they had to keep stopping it, and they had to keep, please sit down in the boat, and whatever, blah, 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 in French.
That was good. That
was pretty good, yeah. And, see, I speak French. And it just, it really did affect the attraction.
It did, well, and the whole time we were eating dinner at Jack's.
Oh, that's right.
Because you're right there with Pirates.
Same thing.
And it was the same thing over and over and over. Please sit down in the boat. Please watch your children. Please sit down. Please watch your children. Please sit down. Over and over. It was crazy. So I don't know if that's a cultural thing.
I didn't notice it on Small World, now that we've said that.
Oh,
Isn't
you're
that
right.
Funny. But those two attractions specifically, Pirates and Storybook, both of them, I don't know why. Maybe because it's more little kids. I don't get it. Well, anyway.
I don't know. But anyway, it was weird. So yeah, that is the international theme song of Disneyland Paris is Please Sit Down on the Boat. So learn the lyrics before you go.
So we were there during Halloween time, and we expected to have Halloween done like Magic Kingdom, or like you would see at Disneyland, or even California Adventure. No, it's pretty much Main Street, and it was fun. There was cartoonish ghosts and pumpkins, and apparently just the regular soundtrack for Main Street with bizarre sound effects thrown in.
Not necessarily spooky.
No, like boing, or oops, or slip. I mean, it was like...
It was weird. What? It was so... And there was one that was just a child crying, because none of us hear that enough at Disney anyway. So let's put it on the Main Street soundtrack. It was bizarre. I know they were intended to be going along with the ghosts and the silly whatever, but oh my gosh, it was so annoying, and it was out of context. It wasn't continuous, so it would just appear once in a while.
And then the Frontierland area was set up to look like a little bit of the Day of the Dead look, which was really fun.
It was cool.
But it was only in the Thunder Mountain area. If you wandered into Thunder Mesa or up a little further north into Adventureland, the theming ended. And that was it.
And I wonder if that was more not Thunder Mountain, but because Casa de Coco is right there.
I'm sure it is. Yeah, that actually makes a lot of
sense.
Which
is one of the quick service restaurants, which we tried and do not recommend.
No, it wasn't great.
But that is the only place to get the churros, and the churros are wonderful, but they were not available the night we were there because they had an issue in the kitchen. We should say that there is a daytime parade, and it is the Halloween one right now. It is nothing like Boo to You. It's very, very cute. The music is all about harvest and
very bouncy.
Very bouncy,
as opposed
very
to dark.
fun. Yeah, it's not creepy, but they do have some creepy characters that walk along, but they're still to the bouncy harvest music. So it's a little bit of a dichotomy. Yeah.
Yeah.
But very, very cute. This is where you'll see all the characters in their Halloween costumes. They also have characters that do walk around the park. There were lots of villains present. We got to see Cruella and her two House of
Her fashion
designers, which was so fun.
They're hysterical. If you get a chance, YouTube that. You'll find it in a few different places, and it's really fun.
They were speaking French, but even in French, you understand the context of what's happening, and it's just fun. It's a kick. So we did really enjoy that. There were also some exclusive Halloween treats that were available at some of the walk-up and quick service locations. We didn't try a lot of those, but they were available. There was nothing that was like, oh my gosh, we have to have that. But, you know, it's fun when there's an exclusive anything available. Yeah. I love limited edition, literally anything. So that's just kind of my thing. But they did do Halloween in that way as well. So that was kind of nice.
So while we were there, we ate at 3 of the signature restaurants, Captain Jack's, Remy's, which is, and Waltz. Oh, and Rosalie.
Oh, we did hit Rosalie briefly, so we will talk about that as well in that upcoming episode.
We're going to have a whole episode coming up on those restaurants.
Yeah, let's talk about Sequoia.
Yeah, we stayed at Sequoia Lodge again. This was the second time staying there, and I have no doubt we'll go back and stay there again. It was just a fantastic experience. The people there in the lounge specifically were way above par, and we gushed about the lounge in an earlier episode from the Newport Bay. This was a time that we did stay at the Sequoia Lounge this time instead of lounge hopping, and I'm glad we did.
Me too.
All 3 nights we went there was so good.
It's such a great way to end your park day, and you don't even have. It's beautiful. It's welcoming. It's homey. Even the service was usually a little on the slower side, but they are not slow.
No.
Like, they have one guy covering a whole area, and
he's very, very efficient.
Very efficient. So just have some patience. And we also hit it at different times. There was one night when we had a really early night and went back to the hotel a little earlier than we normally would have. Our motto for this trip was, hey, we've got 4 days. So it turns out those 4 days. Yeah. Those 4 days do dwindle away, but that was our motto for the whole trip. But there was a night that we did go back earlier because we did have the luxury of time on this one. And it was a lot less crowded than the night that we did the fireworks and then left the park with everybody else. So, you know, it varies that way as well. But great drinks, great service.
A lot of sandwich choices, too. Which
yeah,
is
really
really
nice
good.
food menu. They had charcuterie boards available. They had, we got the bacon sandwich and the ham sandwich.
Think BLT.
Yeah. And they were both amazing. I mean, for what they are.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's the best sandwich I've ever had.
It's bar food.
It's bar food.
It's good. It's upscale.
But they also had seasonal drinks, which I am a huge fan of. So that was really fun to explore those. I got a different drink every night. It was just a really nice way to end your park day.
Yeah, listen to episode 86 where we do talk about the pricing between these resorts. We have stayed at 3 of the resorts now. And Sequoia is my favorite.
Me too.
Yeah. They fixed the bathroom problem with the shower doors being glass and on a hinge.
That may still be the case at Newport, though.
Well, that's true, depending on the
know.
next update they do. I will still say this hotel felt like it was in need of another update.
Yes.
It's been a few years, but it's still, in my opinion, value-wise, location-wise, and theming is by far my favorite of the hotels at Disneyland Paris.
One thing you should note, this time we were not in the main building. We were over at the Yosemite part. They're all named after U.S. national parks. We were at Yosemite. It was a very short walk, a really, really pleasant walk. It's all wooded. There's nature sounds, which I don't know if they're real or piped in. I honestly don't know. But
well, I never did see the bear, so I'm going to go with that. But yeah, they're in 2-story bungalows, I guess you could say, detached from the main building. And these are the ones that are not the concierge level. So last time we went and stayed at Sequoia, we stayed in the concierge level and has its own check-in. A lot more expensive, but I was kind of a splurge we did.
Yeah, and breakfast was included, and there's a separate lounge that you can go to afterwards, and like there's little perks.
There are, and it's in the main building mostly.
Yes.
And so, to be honest, I really didn't see a value for staying in the main building versus staying in those detached areas.
I'm going to say, when I first realized we were not in the main building, I was really bummed because that was my only experience. Having done it now, I prefer being outside the main building.
It was a lot quieter.
It was so quiet. We had the window open because, again, the AC issue, which we did learn more about.
That's a good point. Let me just talk about that. We learned that it's actually federal law in those EU countries that air conditioning can only be set just a few degrees above the ambient temperature outside, or lower, I should say. In this case, we're talking about air conditioning.
Right.
We didn't seem to have that problem with heat.
Right.
It was very warm last time we went in winter. But yeah, the hotels themselves will sometimes bring you a fan.
If you ask.
Your room.
Yeah.
We did find that, if you ask. So just note that if you're coming from the U.S. and you're used to having control over the air conditioning, you might think you do, but you don't.
You do within a couple degrees. So yeah, we relied on having those windows open, and it actually worked out really well. We did mention in our last episode, in the planning episode, that plugs, you need to make sure you have the right adapters. We did have the right adapters, but you should know that in Sequoia right now, and this is pre whatever the next rehab is, so November 2024, you cannot currently plug in and have your phone while you're sleeping. You can't use it as your alarm next to your bed or be scrolling through Facebook as you're trying to go to sleep, any of that. The only plugs are next to the TV all the way across the room. So just be aware that that is the situation. Bring a super long cable if you really need that, or just know that you're going to be phoneless while you're going to sleep.
So back in the parks, we ran into a very odd situation with fireworks where we had signed up for the premier seating, or whatever you want to call the special, hey, I'm over here and you're not seating, because it gets really crowded. We knew about the people throwing elbows and things, and we figured, hey, this is not going to be fun. We got ourselves caught on the wrong side of Main Street, and we needed to be over on Adventureland side, which is out of order from Magic Kingdom. It goes Frontierland, Adventureland, Fantasyland. So we needed to be in kind of the top left corner of the park, and we were in Tomorrowland.
Yes.
Over on the very far right. And so we're like, oh, that's fine. There'll be a pathway across that, the cast members will have open with flashlights going back and forth going, you can't stand here.
Nope.
Nope.
Not even close.
They were packed all the way down Main Street to the train station. So we tried to get through. We finally did. And then even that wasn't enough. We had to go from Frontierland to Adventureland. It was crazy bad.
So here's the takeaway. Let's just say, plan ahead. So if you're doing dinner in the park that night, plan on doing dinner on the Frontierland, Adventureland side. Know that they closed Fantasyland due to fallout way earlier than you would think they would. Yeah. It was bizarrely early to close Fantasyland. So you do have to cross over Main Street, and they do have taped areas to recommend where people can stand, but it is not enforced in any way, shape, or form.
It is more what you call guidelines than actual rules.
So yeah, keep that in mind. Know that you are going to have to be literally stepping over people who are sitting on curbs, who have planted themselves in the middle of Main Street.
And will not move. And are not at all encouraged to by cast members, because they were not enforcing crossovers. They were not helping with flashlights. They weren't enforcing smoking.
They weren't enforcing anything. They were literally just there. Maybe if you wanted to ask where to get popcorn or something, that might have been helpful. I don't know. It was very, very frustrating. So if you are used to the U.S. parks and you're used to order, even amongst the chaos.
And crossovers.
Yes.
On Main Street, yeah.
Yeah, there was none of that. So our best tip, have dinner on that side of the park, Frontierland, Adventureland, and plan ahead so that, and use that walkway. Yeah, there's a walkway that goes from the arcade on the left. Now, when I say arcade, I'm not talking about video games. I'm talking about a walkway, because Main Street has walkways on both east and west side that go all the way up behind the buildings and connect from front to back of Main Street. So useful. And the one on the left, so the Casey's Corner side or the Emporium side, there's another walkway that is just around the corner from that is covered all the way from Main Street to Pirates and Adventureland. That's where you have to be for the super secret seating that you pay money for. Just make sure you're over there before 90 minutes before fireworks. Yeah, they start queuing up early for fireworks there. So again, totally worth it to get that premier seating for the fireworks, or premier standing.
Yeah,
They
it
don't
ended up
let
being
you sit.
standing. You can sit up until about 15 minutes before, and then they had everybody stand.
Yeah,
So that part was kind of not so bad.
that's true.
The last thing we did was visit another EU country. Now, you might not have thought about this when you're talking about planning a Disneyland Paris trip. We added Switzerland. It was a 3-hour train ride on the high-speed rail to Geneva or to Zurich, either one. Germany is right there if you've got a car, or, again, don't drive in Paris, but if you want to rent a car from Charles de Gaulle or from Orly, where you flew into, and then drive out of the country, the freeways are very nice there. They drive on the right side. Most of them are toll roads, but they will explain to you what you need to do, and all the rental cars are already set up for that purpose, so don't fret about that. Just know that they have speeding cameras. I'm just going to tell you, be really aware of speeding cameras. If it says 100 kilometers an hour, do 100 kilometers an hour. Let everybody else pass you.
They're not joking around.
They're not joking around. But throw in another country. It's very easy and simple from there. Even just a quick domestic flight, because all of the EU are what they call Schengen, I think. Schengen countries. Switzerland, for instance, is not part of the EU, but it's part of that group. And so border-to-border crossing is a sign, just like going between states in the U.S.
Yeah, and your
very
biggest
nice.
expense is always getting over there. So you might as well take advantage of being over there and add another country.
Yeah, country-to-country travel is inexpensive. You can get Ryanair and some of the other low-cost airlines and get really cheap flights between, like, Charles de Gaulle and Munich, or Charles de Gaulle and the Czech Republic. Prague. Go see the amazing countries that are there. If you're there, it's just, or see Paris for another 4 days. Andy, when we talk to him, will be talking about his additional 4 days he spent in Paris for the first time.
That's pretty cool. So yeah, definitely don't be afraid to get out and explore. We should also, we are discussing, I don't know if we'll end up doing it or not, doing a full episode on our time in Switzerland. Not Disney related, of course, but we had such an amazing trip. I would love to share it with everybody.
It is where the original Matterhorn is, though.
That's right, the real one.
The one they built originally in Switzerland, right? And that, no?
Right. Yeah,
Not a roller
that's not how
coaster?
that works.
Well, that's weird. Okay.
We did check. There is no abominable snowman in there.
They did talk about Yetis, but I think they meant the thermal mugs. Yeah, weird.
I do want to also mention, we talked a lot about people and personal space. There is one lovely spot that we found, and I just want to throw it in really quick because we discovered it on our last day. When you are coming from Main Street through the castle into Fantasyland, there are 2 ramps that go down from the castle on the right and on the left. If you follow the right ramp all the way down into the shop with the 3 fairies on it from Sleeping Beauty, follow it straight through that shop, right out the back door. There is a courtyard right there. It is shaded with umbrellas. There are tables. There are benches. There's a Cinderella's coach back there that you can take pictures with. It's a beautiful spot. We were one of maybe 3 families that was back there.
Nobody knows it's there.
No one was back there. And
gorgeous.
Not only was it secluded away from people, even on a busy day, and had the lovely shade and the lovely seating, but there was also a backstage area where the characters came through. We saw Aurora. We saw
Snow White.
We saw Cinderella.
We saw the mice.
The mice from Cinderella. They all were coming back, and they were waving. They weren't stopping or anything. They were on their way to take a break. But we got to see them all close up, and they would wave and engage that way. It was truly, truly a magical time. So if you have had your fill of people, but you don't want to leave the parks, go find that little nook, because it was a treasure, let me tell you.
Well, folks, that was our trip to Disneyland Paris. The near future, we'll do some more episodes about Disneyland Paris, about the restaurants, and about Andy's experience, and maybe one about Switzerland. We'll see where that fits in.
Yeah.
Because we're coming up to the end of the season here.
We
in
are.
Just a
Can you
few
believe
weeks.
that?
Just so you know, folks, we will be taking off mid-December through the end of January, just like we did last year. So Season 3 will start up at the end of January. Season 2 is still going and has at least another 5 or 6 episodes.
At least 2 or 3. We'll discuss.
We'll discuss. Okay. Before we go, we'd like to give a big thank you to our theme music composer, Jason Patrick Rowan, whose music is licensed through Pond 5. And of course, thank you, Phoenicians.
Thank you, Phoenicians. And don't forget to rate, review, like, share, and subscribe. It really does help other people find us. You can find us on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts.
The Epcotian Adventure is a $1,000 brunch production and a proud gold member of D23. Thanks for joining us today for episode 88 of the Epcotian Adventure. I'm Rod.
And I'm Sue.
And we'll see you in line.
Bye. Should I have said, merci, Phoenicians?